So welcome everybody to the August 2017 PASS Women in Technology virtual group session. Thank you very much for attending today. We really appreciate it. I asked last month, a few minutes into the broadcast, that I needed a Power BI session for this month. Somebody sent me a message that said, hey, don't forget about her. And I was able to contact her right away. She got back to me. So we're very, very lucky to have her this month. I wanted an intro to Power BI because I think a lot of people really have questions about how do I get started? What exactly is it? My company's told me they need business intelligence, but what does that mean to them? So I'm confident that we're all going to leave today smarter. And I'm so glad that we're able to get a woman speaker to do this for us. So we are sponsored today by SentryOne, as we are every month. So at the end of the broadcast, I will select one of you to be the winner of a $50 Amazon gift card. So I hope you registered with your real email address. SentryOne actually does a tremendous amount for the Women in Technology virtual group. They even sponsored our happy hour last year at Summit, and they're doing it again this year. So look for an Eventbrite to come out if you'd like to attend that happy hour again this year. But we're really grateful to the support that we get from SentryOne. You can check us out, our YouTube channel. Please don't try to memorize that. Just do a search on YouTube for PASS WIT. We record all of our sessions, and I should actually have this one uploaded by close of business today. wit.sequelpass.org works, as does wit.pass.org, since they just rebranded the site. If you log into PASS, join our virtual chapter, you get our monthly newsletter. I just noticed there's a typo on that slide. I've got to fix that. And of course, you can follow us on Twitter at PassWit or follow the hashtag PassWit. Use the hashtag. If you find something that you think would be interesting to the rest of us, share it with that hashtag. I promise you, I have a TweetDeck column and I follow it that way. If you have not registered for Summit yet, but you're interested in going, the virtual chapter has a discount code that gets you $150 off. So please use that. We get credit for it. And as a lot of you know, we highlight every week women that are speaking on technical or women in tech topics. And Columbus, why is this still here? There we go. Sorry. Because Columbus happened in July. So Sioux Falls has events coming up. And Brasilia and Singapore, Karen Lopez is actually already over in Singapore now. She's posting some nice, very, very nice pictures. SQL Saturday Auckland is happening, and Oslo and Johannesburg. All of those are coming up. Upcoming webinars for PASS WIT. Tracy Baggiano and Kendra Little are speaking for, I think, DBA Fundamentals, but we help promote those and share the link. You can register for those through the wit.pass.org website. We have the link up there. Andrea Masher is going to be doing He's Assertive, She's Aggressive. It's about unconscious bias in the workplace for us in September. I'm really excited about that one. And Kellen is doing our Power in the Simple Act of Doing session for us in October. I think we'll have another BI talk in November or December. Julie Smith has agreed to do one. We're just working on scheduling. And I love Julie Smith. She's who I want to be when I grow up. But today's session is Angela Henry. What is Power BI? She is in North Carolina, works from home. I found out today most of the time. I met her when she came down and spoke at SQL Saturday Atlanta, and I got a lot of positive feedback about her session. So I'm really excited about today's session. I was too busy to get to attend it because when you're running a SQL Saturday, apparently people want stuff all the time. So Angela, I'm going to go ahead and turn over presenter to you, and I'm going to mute my mic until someone has a question.
Great. Thank you very much. And gee, I don't know anything about organizing a SQL Saturday and not having time to attend sessions, so I completely understand. Um, all right, can you see my slide deck? Is that
Yes, yes, that's all
okay?
I can see is your slide deck.
Okay, perfect. All right. Well, welcome everybody. And again, thank you, Ree and PassWIT, for inviting me to speak. It's such an honor, and I'm very, very thankful for that. Today is just an intro session to Power BI. So there's no deep dive here. This is, what is it? How can I use it? And is it going to be right for my company session? So hopefully, if that's what you're looking for, you'll get your answers and you'll be able to take some action after this session. So a little bit about me, as Ree said, I do live in High Point, North Carolina. I work from home 4 days a week. I work for a very small manufacturing company out in Hickory. And for those not familiar with the geography of North Carolina, that's 90 miles away, which is why I work from home 4 days a week and only go to the office 1 day a week. I did earn my MCSE in business intelligence a couple years ago. I finally decided to bite the bullet after 20 years of being in the industry. Let's give it a try, and holy cow, I passed the exam, so woohoo. I am also the local group leader for the past chapter in Greensboro. It's the Triad SQL Users Group. I tweet at SQL Swimmer, I blog, and the reason that I tweet at SQL Swimmer is because I am a US Masters swimmer, and as my slide says, I'm usually in the pool if I'm not working or sewing. So great. All right, so quick overview here. We're going to talk about the what, the who, the why, the kind of the flavors. I refer to it as the flavors of Power BI. And then we're kind of going to talk about the how, so the different parts and pieces that make up Power BI. And then at the end, we will get into the integration with reporting services, and we'll talk about the new premium details, not at length, but just enough to make you really curious and go out there and check all of that documentation that's out there. All right, let's get started. So what is Power BI? Now, this presentation came about because my boss, who is actually fairly, he keeps up with technology pretty well. He is an AS400 guy, but he does keep up with technology. And he came to me last year and he said, I heard about this great new thing called Power BI, and can we use this? And I said, well, yes and no, because like I said earlier, I work for a very small manufacturing company, and to them, cloud is a dirty word. So I had to be very careful about how I put this all together. So that is how this came about. So the first thing I did is I just went out and I Googled Power BI. And yes, I used Google as a verb there. And it first came up and it said, Power BI is this amazing business analytics service, that enables anyone to visualize and analyze data. While that sounds really cool, it still doesn't really tell you what Power BI is. So I went out to the Microsoft's Power BI site and came up with their definition of what it is. And you guys can all read that, but I want to really stress some of the words that are in this. The first one is, it's a collection of software services, apps, connectors that work together to turn your unrelated sources of data into coherent, visually immersive, and interactive insights. So those are the words that I kind of emphasize there. Those are the ones to kind of really keep in mind, because Power BI isn't just one thing. You have the Power BI service, you have Power BI desktop, you have Power BI apps. It goes on and on and on. So there's lots of different parts and pieces to Power BI, and you don't always necessarily have to have a connection to the cloud in order to use Power BI. And one of the other really cool things about Power BI, Microsoft has, I don't know if anybody else has noticed this, but they have become more willing for their technology applications to work on non-Microsoft devices, non-Intel devices. So the great thing about Power BI is that when you use the online service, it's browser-based and it's essentially browser independent. So you can, of course, use the Microsoft Edge or IE. Those are all perfectly supported, but you can also use Firefox and Safari, Chrome even. The only caveat to those is you just need to make sure that you are on the latest version of the non-Microsoft products. And I don't know about you, but I have a smartphone, I have a tablet, and when I'm sitting at home, when I'm not working, I use my tablet to kind of cruise around, check the internet. And that's the other great thing about Power BI is that there's actually an app for Power BI that is supported on not only Windows devices, but also on iOS and Android devices. So it's essentially, device OS dependent, which is also very, very cool. And then we get down to the flavors. So there's Power BI Free, Power BI Pro, and Power BI Premium. And we're going to talk about those a little bit more in depth, and I'll kind of point out the differences between those different flavors as we go on. So now that we know what Power BI is, and before we move on to who can use it, does anybody have any questions? Do we have any out there yet?
I have one.
Okay.
Don would like to know if you have any suggested web or online tutorials to get started with Power BI.
Absolutely. This is one area where Microsoft has really kind of stepped up its game. In the past, they have not been very good at their online documentation, but the online documentation that's available from the Power BI site itself is absolutely fabulous. That is, you'll see in my reference slide, that's where I actually got most of the information to put this slide deck and this presentation together. So I would highly recommend heading out there. And then also, if there are folks who are on Twitter, Adam Saxton, who tweets as Guy in a Cube, he actually is, I think, I might say this wrong, but I believe he is like the product manager for the documentation team for Power BI. And he has a video blog that has, hours and hours of different things. And they come in anywhere from 2 to 5 minute spurts on how to do things with Power BI. So those would be my two biggest suggestions right there, is the actual documentation on the Power BI site and Adam Saxton's blog.
And well, so I'll really quickly, if you're on Twitter, follow Adam. He's at Guy in a Cube.
Yes.
And it's just a really easy way to find all the links to everything that he shares. And he's usually pretty entertaining. So
he is. And he's very responsive to questions. He's helped me out several times when I've had a question on something, when I needed clarification on something, especially with all the changes that came about on June 1st. He was very, very helpful with those. So highly recommend Twitter to, at least as your starting point, to figure out where to go from there.
So, and just for everybody's edification, it's Adam Saxton, Saxton. We had somebody ask, so I cleared it up.
Okay.
So, and that's all the questions, so you're free to continue at will.
Okay, great. All right, so now who can use Power BI? So just like with Office 365, it's subscription based. So it's based on your email address. So if you want to use Power BI, you have to sign up with an email address that is either a school or work address. They do not allow personal government or military, which means it's going to have, if it's got the .gov or the .mil, they will not allow that. And if it's your telecom or your ISP, that's not allowed either, and no Hotmail or anything like that. That's all considered personal. So it has to be a school or a work address. And the .org, the .org, that is actually included in school or work. So if any of you are out there that work for nonprofit organizations and that's part of your email address, you you are more than welcome to use Power BI. So that comes in very handy. And let's go to our next slide here. So now we come to the why. Why would I want to use Power BI? I have all these other tools out there. Why would I want to use Power BI? Well, the first one is for visualization. You want to be able to visualize your data. So way back in, I believe it was 1974, there was a researcher who, by the name of Anscombe, who created these 4 sets of data that had the exact same summary statistics. So for any of you out there that aren't aware, summary statistics are things that a lot of researchers and statisticians, it's really hard for me to say S's with braces, so bear with me on that. So statisticians use summary statistics. So we're talking about your mean, your median, your standard deviation, those kinds of numbers to kind of get a really broad picture of their data. And so what Anscombe did is he actually created these 4 sets of data that produce the exact same summary statistics. But when you actually plot this data, it's very different. They each tell very different stories. So that is the biggest reason to use Power BI is to visualize your data, see what that data is telling you. Don't just rely on your summary statistics to tell you the whole story. You have to actually look at your data. So visualization is the first one. The next one it's super easy and it's super quick if you want to create a visualization in Power BI. And you'll see that when we get to the demos. The last one is if you don't have a full-time report writer at your company. I don't have that luxury. Like I said, I work for a very small manufacturing company. I am the only database professional there. So I don't have time to, write really pretty reports and make them perfect and all of that. So if you don't have a full-time report writer at your company, this is a great thing because you can create your data sets, publish them out there for your colleagues to use, and then you've got that gold standard so that everybody's on the same page and everybody's viewing the same data and the same information. Okay, any questions on the why?
Sorry, I was muted.
Nope, that's okay. That's okay. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the flavors of Power BI. So you essentially have free and pro, and I did mention premium earlier, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But the 2 basic ones are free and pro. Now, prior to June 1st, there were some very significant differences between free and pro. The biggest one was the types of data sources that you could connect to. As of June 1st, it does not matter whether you have a free subscription or a pro subscription, you can connect to the exact same data sources. So that's a huge, huge deal. The downside of the changes that they've made with the changes on June 1st is that collaboration is now very limited in the free subscription. In fact, you're essentially limited to publishing out your dashboard to the web where everybody can see it. So it's not really collaboration because you're just kind of putting it out there. So you kind of get the idea, it's very limited collaboration. But with the pro subscriptions, you can collaborate within your Office 365 groups if you've already got that. If you're not using Office 365, you do not have to use Office 365. Like I said, it's all subscription based and it's all based on your email address. So there are a few little kind of funky things on there. So your addresses need to be the same. So the company that I work for, we used to have one domain name for our email address, hsmsolutions.com. And they've now kind of split us up. So now we have different domain names based on the different sub companies that we have. So it's a little trickier, but you can still manage all of that. So collaboration is one of the big differences there. Let's see. Oh, streaming data. So with streaming data, if you've got the free subscription, you can only stream 1 million rows an hour. I mean, would you ever want to stream more than that? Very possibly. For me, it works. I don't have a problem with that. But if you have the Pro, it's unlimited. You can stream as much as you want. And then access is limited to just you, like I said, unless you want to publish that out to the internet for the whole world to see. And with the Pro subscription, I would say if you have any more than 5 users within your organization, that you would most likely want to set up or designate somebody as your Power BI admin, and then they can actually manage the access and the sharing via your Azure AD groups. Now, some of you are probably panicking because I said Azure AD groups. When you're saying, well, we don't use Office 365 and we don't use Azure. If you create an account and have a subscription to Power BI, you now have Azure Directory, Azure Active Directory. So that's how it all kind of works behind the scenes. I don't want to get too deep in the weeds of that, but that's essentially how that works. Do we have any questions on that one so far?
Nothing so far. You're good.
Okay. All right. So then it's cost. So what is the cost? Well, the free version is free. Yay! So that's awesome. And you do not need to, you can actually use the Power BI desktop application for absolutely free. You do not need to have a Pro subscription to download and use the Power BI desktop application. But if you do want to go with the Pro subscription, the cost is $9.99 per month per user. I think that's fairly reasonable. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. Unless you have a very large company, it's a very reasonable rate, and that's one of the reasons why they did come out with the premium, which I said we will talk about in a little bit. If you have a very large company, then they've come up with the premium option to kind of help reduce costs on that one. So let's keep going. All right, we've talked about the what, we've talked about the who, we've talked about the why. Now we're going to talk about the how. So how do you go about working with Power BI? How does it work? So you have to think of there are 3 parts to Power BI. You've got your dashboards. They're at the very, very top. That's like the 50,000-foot view. It's a blank canvas, and that's where you want to think about putting all your pretty pictures on for everybody to see. And then underneath that are reports. And reports can actually be used in more than one dashboard. So if you have like a standard visual, and I'm going to break the rules and I'm going to use the word visual and report kind of synonymously here, unless there is a very specific difference, and then I will point that out, because the verbiage that they use with Power BI has a lot of people confused. So reports are essentially visualizations, are paginated, how do I want to say this? Are sets of visualizations that have been paginated. And you'll understand that a little bit better when we get to the demo, and you can see what I'm talking about a little bit better there. And then the very last level, or the foundation of everything in Power BI, is your data set. So your data set is what contains your data. And you can use data sets in more than one report. And then, like I said, you can use reports in more than one dashboard. So you can kind of see how you can start with just one data set and just build out from there, and how it can be used in so many different ways. All right, so dashboards. We're going to talk about dashboards a little bit here. That's the first one. So dashboards are made up of tiles. like I said, they had to come up with their own verbiage here. We can't just use, words that we're all familiar with. So on a dashboard, this whole area right here is your dashboard. And each of these things that I am highlighting in this red box here, those are each individual tiles that have been pinned to this dashboard. So, you've got a scorecard, you've got a bubble chart, you've got bar charts. Every single one of those are tiles, and those are individual visualizations that have been pinned to this dashboard. So that dashboard is a little intimidating the first time you see it. So Power BI, the documentation on Power BI had this great graphic when it first came out, but they keep changing Power BI so rapidly. It's really, really hard to keep up with all the changes that they've made. So I started with their graphic, and then I added my own stuff to it. So over here on the left-hand side in the pink, you've got your navigation bar. That's how you get around all of Power BI. And then, like I said, this is your dashboard over here. Number 2 in the orange, that whole thing is considered your dashboard. Number 3 in the green, that's your Q&A. That's where you're going to actually be able to type in natural English language or whatever language you are using to ask questions of your data. Very, very powerful tool. And it makes it a whole lot easier because then you don't have to, train your users how to query the data. They can just say, what was my total revenue for, August 2017? They could actually type that in and they could get an answer back. So it's very, very cool. The next thing you have up here in yellow, number 4, you've got all of your help and feedback buttons. So if you wanted to download Power BI desktop application, this is where you would go. If you want to download the data gateway, this is where you would go. And over here, number 5 in blue, that's the actual title of your dashboard that you are currently on. And for those that do use Office 365, you don't actually have to leave the Power BI site. You can click on your little Office 365 logo right here and it'll take you right there. You can go to the Power BI homepage by clicking here. And then the last thing is this little red box, number 8, and this allows you to do several other, actions with your dashboard. One of the most important being you can add tiles to your dashboard here. All right, so I've got a demo, but before we go to the demo, do I have any questions out there, Ree?
Nothing right now.
Okay, all right, well then let's hit the demo. All right. So this is one of the sample packs that Power BI that they have made available that Microsoft really, really wants people to use Power BI. So they came up with these great sample packs. I think there's 6 or 7 of them with very common data scenarios, and I happen to choose the kind of the sales and the profitability one because that's one that most people kind of understand. So as opposed to manufacturing, because I'm sure not everybody really understands. I didn't until I worked for a manufacturer, how all that all worked and what everything meant. So this is the one that I chose. And as you can see, I have several tiles up here. And one of the really cool things about the dashboards is that you can have different actions depending on the tile that you select. So I can say, well, I want to go this gross margin. Let's drill into that a little bit more, and it can actually bring up several other reports. Now, if you'll notice, this area right here changed a little bit from what it was. So if we go back to my dashboard, see. Now, if we come back over here, now you're actually looking at different reports. And down here on the bottom, you can see those different reports down here once you have drilled down. Another really cool thing is that you can actually I think I'm gonna click on this one down here. Oh, this one does the same thing. What I'm trying to show you is the context-based filtering. So I've got this filter over here, and I can say, look at that, it's magic. Every single one of those visuals changed when I selected that. Very cool. And if you want to view more than one, simple Windows commands, just Control, click, and you can see both of them at the same time. And then to unselect, you just click them and they go away. So kind of a really quick kind of tour of what a dashboard is and what it kind of looks like. All right, so let's head back to our slide deck. So the next thing, so we've talked about our dashboard that had all those pretty pictures on it. And remember I said dashboards are made up of tiles that have been pinned to it. And where those tiles come from is reports. So reports, you can either create them from scratch within the Power BI service. You can create them from scratch within the desktop application. There are some differences there, and you'll see that in the demo, the differences between when you're creating it in the service and when you're creating it in the desktop application. You have a lot more control and fine tuning when you use the desktop application than when you just use the service, and that comes in really handy. You can create reports. So if somebody shares a dashboard with you, you can actually import reports from their dashboard into your workspace. So you can kind of take somebody else's work, and so you don't have to reinvent the wheel and maybe make some minor modifications. And then you can use it and pin it in your own dashboard for your own use if you've got something just a little bit different that you needed, but you didn't, like I said, you don't want to have to recreate that wheel for you. If you are currently using Power View in Excel, if you've got those things all set up, and I mean, I don't know about you guys, but my accountants love Excel. They won't use anything else. We have a multi-dimensional cube that sits on top of our warehouse, and they query it to their heart's content with Excel because that's all they want to look at. They're accountants. They just like the numbers. They don't really like pretty pictures. But we do have some people out there, like the C-suite people, who do want to see those pretty pictures. So if you have created any visuals in Excel from those, from that data, when you upload that into Power BI, when you import that, it will actually bring those visualizations in for you, so you don't have to recreate them from scratch. So that's really kind of cool. And then again, reports can be associated with more than one dashboard. So if you have one really common thing, but you have that you have to put out there, so you have a dashboard for your C-suite people, you have a dashboard for your production people, and everybody needs to see that, you create it once and then you pin it to those two different dashboards and you're all set. All right. Any questions on reports? If not, I'm going to go ahead and start kind of a little bit of a demo on that.
Oh, hang on.
Okay.
I'm hearing that content packets are going away in favor of apps. Can you explain?
Yes. So there used to be this thing called a content pack, and what a content pack was is kind of a big package rolled up. It included your data set, your reports, and your dashboards. And that's actually the dashboard that I had there, that customer profitability, that was based on a content pack. They have moved away from content packs and they now call them apps because we can't keep the same verbiage because that would just be way too simple. And with that move to apps, it's still the same thing where you can package up your data set, your report, and your dashboard, but there are some differences there. And I am not even going to attempt to get down into the nitty-gritty of that because it gets very complicated. I did Adam's deep dive on Power BI when I was in Atlanta, and I think we ended up talking about this at length, probably for close to 30 minutes. And since we don't have that much time, that's I'm kind of going to leave it there, and then I'm going to suggest that you go out and check the documentation and check Adam Saxton's blog on that, because he does a much better job of explaining kind of those intricate details where those differences do lie. And a lot of that comes into the collaboration piece, and whether you have the free or the pro subscription. So I know there are some people who used to be able to, everybody had the free subscription and they could use content packs, and that worked perfectly for them. But as of June 1st, when they went away from that model and they've now gone to this app, those no longer work the same. So that was a really kind of a negative impact on her company. And as far as I know, they're still trying to figure something out on how to make that work. And the Power BI team is very, very responsive to the community. They actually have their own community site where you can go and you can ask questions. And that is another really good resource for anybody who has questions on Power BI, because you are probably not the first person to ask any of the questions that you have. So you can kind of troll through there and look for questions. And if you don't, you can always post it in like I said, their team is fabulous, and they really get back to the users quickly, and they do listen to the community. I mean, they roll out new updates at least every month, if not more frequently. So does that kind of put you at ease for right now? Because I don't really want to get into the weeds of it, or do I?
Well, so you answered her question. So
Okay.
I think you should be. I have another question that
Okay.
I'm not quite sure I have the whole. I don't think I understand this question. It says, can you explain where you said that report created when you connect to the data to the Excel data set?
Sorry about that. I had you on mute while I was taking a drink of water.
Oh,
yeah, so if you have, if anybody is using Power Pivot in their Excel reports and they're creating, or to look at their data, and they're creating Power Charts, or if they're using Power View, when you import that, because you can import Excel files into Power BI. So if you have one of those workbooks and you want to import it into Power BI, it will preserve those visuals for you, and it will create reports for you. So like I said, in our company, that's what the C-suite likes, as opposed to our accountants. So what we did is we initially uploaded those Excel files, that had those visualizations in there, so that I did not have to recreate them from scratch. So that's what I mean by it says it actually will create those reports for you if they already exist in that Excel workbook when you upload it.
awesome. Okay.
Okay. All right. And okay, so now just a little bit, and we kind of went through this, but we will. Oh, I have to set focus back here. Okay, we went through this a little bit, how you can drill through into this report, and you can, highlight different things. You can actually, so before I was using just the filter that had been set up over here on the left, but you can actually filter based on what you select. So every time I select something different, you can see that it's all reflected in all of the visuals that are there. So, and at the bottom, you can see these are actually, and so as I said earlier, this is a content pack that was available as a sample so that you could get an idea of how to use this. And this is freely available in the from Power BI. And we'll talk about this a little bit later, but I just kind of wanted to show you where you could actually do that. So if you hit your little Get Data button down here at the bottom, and samples right here, if you select that, Those are the samples that are available. So they have 8 of them now that are available. And it was this customer profitability one that I chose, and that I'm using in my demo here. And one thing to note, Power BI, when you import data into Power BI, it names it however your document is named. So it was a customer profitability sample.xlsx file. So that's what it used as the name for my data set, for my reports, and for my dashboard. It just defaults to that. If you don't like those names, you can always come here. There's this little ellipsis right here, and you can rename it to whatever you want, whether it be your dashboard, whether it be your report, or whether it be your data set. You can rename them once they've been uploaded. All right, so let's go back to my workspace and bring up our report over here. So if we go back to our dashboard, and we can drill down and see all these different things. So if I want to see just paper, or if I want to see paper plus oil and gas, really cool. And then these are paginated reports. Now, before, when I drilled down, it was actually sent to a team scorecard. So those are different. And when I drilled down onto the product, I got a different paginated report that's behind here. So those are all things that you can do within your dashboard when somebody selects something, is you can have it drill down and go to different different paginated reports that are behind the scene. Okay, so now let's get back and let's talk about the best part of Power BI. It's our data sets. So in Power BI, data sets are something that you either import or you connect to. If you're going to import, it's going to be a file. You can import from your local drive, from your OneDrive, whether it be personal or your work OneDrive. You can import from SharePoint team sites. I'm not sure how that works. I don't use SharePoint. I don't even know how to spell SharePoint, so don't tell anybody. But you can do it. It is supported. The good thing to know about files, though, is that there are only 3 types of files that are supported that can be imported into Power BI. Those are Excel files, and that can actually either be the XLSX format or the XLSM format. So either 2 of those formats are supported. And then you can also import a CSV file. And then the last one that you can import is the actual Power BI desktop application. So that actually creates a PBIX file, and you can import your PBIX file. So you can do all of your work locally in the Power BI desktop application, save it, and then you can actually import it or publish it up to the Power BI service. So you're very limited onto things that you can actually, for files that you can actually import. But once you import it, you can use it over and over again. And if it's some kind of document that is, or spreadsheet or whatever, that's updated on a daily basis, you can actually set up a scheduled refresh to refresh that data as well. And we'll talk about that a little bit more when we talk about the data gateway. And then the next way to get data in, your data sets into Power BI is you connect to them. So you can connect to, they have umpteen gazillion, okay, maybe that's an exaggeration, but there are several different services that you can connect to. Some of them are free. Some of them, if you don't already have a subscription, you will need to get a subscription if that's what you want to connect to. So my office, they used to use Salesforce. They don't anymore. Hallelujah. Sorry if there's any Salesforce people out there, but it was my worst nightmare. And so we had to have accounts in order to be able to create that connection, because with Salesforce, you do have to have an account to connect to Salesforce and look at your data. So you've got the services that you can connect to, and I'll show you in our demo, there's gobs and gobs of services that you can connect to. You can connect to databases. So the Azure SQL database, Azure SQL Warehouse, and then you can also connect to SQL Server's analysis services, both the tabular and multidimensional models. One thing to kind of note there is that if you are going to be doing any kind of direct querying in your database connections, and you will need to use the on-premises data gateway, and we will talk about that when we get to the data gateway towards the end.
So,
and then of course you can.
Before you go, I have a question that I think is on point for this slide. Are there any differences in the experience when connecting to data sets in Oracle versus SQL Server?
I cannot speak to that because I have never tried to connect to an Oracle database, but I can tell you this. So they have tons of different connectors out there to be able to connect to all different kinds of things. And there is a way to get to Oracle. They do have an Oracle connector out there, I believe, already. But what Microsoft has done is they listened to the community, and they said, the community kept saying, well, I want to be able to connect to this, and I want to be able to connect to this, and you don't provide that. So what Microsoft did is they said, okay, you know what? We are going to provide you a data connector software development kit. So if we do not have that connector available for you, you can create it on your own and you can use it on your own. And if you think it's good enough, if you want to share it with the world, you can actually put it out there in the I think it's the Office store where they put those. I could be wrong, so don't quote me on that, but I think you can actually, they're trying to set it up. I know last month when I talked to Adam, I believe that's where they were trying to set it up. But I'm not sure if that's actually been done yet. But you can actually write your own data connectors with their software development kit that they have put together for that. So does that cover it?
I think so.
Okay. All right.
She says, apparently so. She says, thank you.
Okay. Good deal. Good deal. All right. With that, let's take a look at creating some data sets. All right. So as I said earlier, I am a U.S. master swimmer, but I'm also, the computer geek, the data geek. I want to see. And my thing for swimming is I'm a distance freestyler. And it's one thing to for swimming, finish time is important, but you also want to be able to track your split times, which is, how long did it take for each specific lap? And you want those times to be fairly consistent. So I went out to the US Masters website and I culled all of my data out of there, and I put it all into Excel. And I was so excited about it. And then I said, okay, you know what? I want to see what I can do with this data that I have. So what I have is a very small data set, and it's in an Excel spreadsheet. And one thing to know, if you are going to import data from an Excel spreadsheet, your data does have to be formatted in a table. So just be aware of that, because if you try to import an Excel spreadsheet that just has a bunch of data in it and it's not formatted as a table, it'll come back and it'll say, yeah, there's no data in there. So don't panic. You just need to go back and format it as a table. So with that, let's go get my data. So I'm going to a local file. See, there's the SharePoint team sites. I did not lie, it's there, but I cannot speak to how you use it because I don't use SharePoint. I don't know how to spell it. All right, so here is my swimming spreadsheet, and I'm going to import this. And it's thinking. It gives you this nice little visual up here, and then it says, all right, your data is ready. So let's go view that data set. Now this is where the experience is a little bit different than in the service than it is in the Power BI desktop application. You cannot actually see the underlying data in the Power BI service, but if you look over here on the right-hand side, I have these fields, and I have this finish time, and I have this split times. So those are the two tables that were available in that spreadsheet. So, and then it drops you into this blank canvas right here. So I want to take a look at my finish times, because I'm assuming that, you know, just like with wine, as I age, my swimming gets better. So let's see if that's really true. So over time, I want to see. So it's drag and drop, and you'll notice it put the event date and name. It already knows the different events that are out there. And now I want my finish time in seconds. And look at that. It's just that easy to create a report, to create a visualization. I mean, that's the difference here. This one thing right here, this is a visualization, whereas this whole canvas that's behind here, that's your report. And while you're working on this, you can highlight any of the things just like you can when it's in a dashboard or an actual paginated report that's available out there. So those are my finish times, and well, maybe I wasn't really getting faster, but I certainly wasn't slowing down a whole lot. So okay, not so bad. All right. So finish times are important, but like I said, with being a distance freestyler, split times are significantly more important because you want to have a consistent performance throughout your event. So let's do this again. Grab my little line chart here, and as you can see, there's tons and tons of visualizations over here. And they even have, for any of those statisticians out there or anybody who's already using R, they have an R visualization, so you can import it from the file if you've written your own custom visualization, or you can import it from the store, or you can delete one if you want, but that's up to you. All right, so now let's drag. So I'm still want to see if I'm being consistent over time. So I'm still looking at dates, and I now want my lap because that's what I'm trying to track. Ooh, and I get an error. All right, well, let's make sure that it's not because I just haven't put everything on there. So let me drag this last one over here because it's the split time that I want to look at, and I still get an error. Now, I did this on purpose because this is where one of the differences is between the Power BI service and the Power BI desktop application. So if you import data from Excel, again, it has to be in a table format, but if you have no relationships created within those tables, within that spreadsheet for those tables that are in there, the Power BI service is not smart enough to know that those two tables are related. And with that, we are going to drop over to the Power BI desktop application. So let's come over here, and while that's opening up, I'm just going to clean this up. Let's remove that. And I don't want to save it at all. All right. Thinking. There we go. All right. Okay, so here it looks almost the same, but there are a few differences. The first thing that you'll notice is over here on your left side, the navigation pane is very different. So let's go ahead and grab that same Excel spreadsheet right there. Let's open it up. And ta-da, look at that. I hope this looks familiar to some people out there who use Power Query in Excel, because it's the exact same engine that's doing this. So I want the finish times. Look at that. We've got our preview of the data. Let's load it up. Okay, so now we have it. So just like in the service, we can see the two things that were loaded over here. But now, if I actually want to view that data, I can come over here and I can actually see the underlying data. I can just change which one I'm looking at by selecting it on the right-hand side. And then the last really cool thing is the relationships. So look at that. It has a relationship, even though there was no relationship between those two tables in my Excel workbook. So let's go try this again. Let's try looking at those split times over here. So we want our date. Oh, and here's the other thing. If you don't keep focus on it, it goes away. So let's go ahead and grab our event date and drop it over here. Now look at that. There's another difference between the Power BI service and the Power BI desktop application. In the desktop application, again, it's a little bit smarter than the service. So it says, well, that's a date. So you probably want this to be a hierarchy. So I'm just going to automatically do that for you. Well, actually, no, I really did want just the actual date in there. So all you have to do is click this little arrow right here, the down arrow, and then say, nope, I don't want the data hierarchy. All I want is the date field. And it goes away. All right, so now we want our lap because that's what we're trying to see. And then we take our split time and look at that. It actually worked that time. So yay. And you can add a slicer on here, and you can do that simply by putting the event. So that looks a little messy and I don't know what is what. All I see are the laps. So now I can come over here and say, well, just give me the information about my 1,000 free. Well, actually, no, I only want to see about my 400 free. So you get the idea. You can add slicers and all that kind of stuff. Very quick, very easy to do. So let's go ahead. Once you have your Power BI desktop all set, you can save it and then you can publish it to the web with this little button right here. I'm not going to publish this one. I'm going to publish this one that I already have done. So let me go ahead and publish this out here. Now, Power BI is secure by default. So if I had not already logged in prior to our session, it would have prompted me for my credentials. So I'm going to go ahead, and I see I'm running low on time here. So I'm just going to give you this little demo right here. And then just know that once, see, it tells me that it's all there and it's all ready to go. You can say, got it, you can go there. So now I can come back over to my Power BI site and look at that. It already knew, it knows. Look, there's my swimming. You saw me delete it earlier, but it's back. So we can go view the data set. And it created the report for me. So now we can actually publish this or pin it and create to our dashboard. So we pin visualizations to dashboards. So I'm looking, nope, I want it to go to a brand new dashboard. We're going to call it swimming. Drop that in there. And it says, look, it was pinned. All right, well, we're not done yet. So let's go ahead and pin this one as well. We want it, now that I created it, it's there. And that one's there. How nice of it to tell me. And then if I can, oops. All right, so there we have it. That's kind of bland. So you can actually add different things to your dashboards that are not visualizations, as it were, that we have created within Power BI. You can add web content, you can add images, text boxes, video. One thing to note about these, if you are going to add an image, it has to be a URL. So your image has to already exist on the internet somewhere, and you have to provide that URL. And then with video, the only two formats that are supported right now are YouTube and Vimeo, and again, you have to supply the URL to those as well. You see that you can add real-time streaming data. So I actually have a sample that I have created, and I called it streaming example so I wouldn't get confused. And we're going to make it a line chart. And we're going to add a value. So, and right now, it is so picky. Let's come over here. The only formats that are streaming formats that are supported are PubNub and APIs. So let's look at our radiation level today and give it a second, and it will. Oh, I don't want that one. There we go. Look at that. It's streaming live. Woohoo! And there's awesome example documentation on how to do this in the Power BI documentation. That's how I created it. All right, so I realize we're running out of time here, and I've been going really fast, but we're still not done. So I showed you that. Q&A, again, you can use natural English language to ask your questions, and it comes with tons of stuff. And the cool thing about this is that if you work in a highly specialized fields, you can actually create your own synonyms and phrasings to make it easier on your users to consume the data so they don't have to learn a new language. And I'm not going to demo that because you all know that you're not supposed to type in a demo, so I just won't do that. So the on-premises data gateway, things to know about this really quickly. There are two versions of it. One is called the on-premises data gateway, and then the other one is called personal mode. To me, that's very confusing because if you look over here, they're actually named the same: on-premises data gateway and then recommended, and on-premises data gateway personal mode. Just know that if you are setting this up, that if you use the personal mode, you're the only one that can use it. It can only be used with Power BI. And it has to be on a machine that's always on. So if you are going to set up your gateway so that for your enterprise, you're definitely going to want to go for the on-premises data gateway recommended and not the personal. You don't want to install it on your laptop and then take your laptop home and then have your data not refresh. And from the graphic that we were looking at, if you, up in the top right corner, if you click the little down button, you can just download the data gateway right there. There's a really quick kind of architecture on how the gateway works, from the cloud services down to your on-premises data, and then it goes, hops back on that Azure bus, and it goes all the way back up to whoever made the call. Reporting services, so the integration with reporting services, you do not need to have the enterprise version of reporting services, and it does not require a pro subscription to Power BI. All you get, but you do have to have at least SQL Server 2016 in order for this to work. And you can take visuals from reporting services and pin them to your Power BI dashboard. And you just get this additional little tab down here, and you register it with Power BI. So that's kind of a really big bang for your buck on that one. And then premium, so like I said, this came about because, if you work for a really large company, I did a long time ago, I worked for Raytheon, and they had 80,000 employees worldwide. And if you wanted to license all 80,000 employees at $9.99 per month per user, that was a pretty hefty price tag. So that's where they came up with the premium. So you get dedicated capacity in the cloud. You get to scale it up and out or down and in as you need. If your company is not comfortable with publishing things to the internet, to the service itself, you can get your own Power BI report server. It's an on-premises thing. So that's kind of cool. But you would still have to pay the $9.99 per month per user for anybody who needs to create the reports. But everybody who just consumes it, they do not need a pro license. They can just have the free subscription. So that's kind of a really cool thing that they did there. There's still some kind of quirks with that, and they're working on adding different levels right now. But it's like I said, they just made these changes as of June 1st, so they're still working on it. But they're trying to roll stuff out as quickly as they can. So please be patient with them. Those are my resources, and as you can see, most of them do come from the Power BI Microsoft site. And if you want more information, the Power BI blog, Melissa Coates, she's down in Charlotte. She does a great job of explaining a lot of things with Power BI. Same with Reza Rad and Chris Webb. And then, like I said, Adam Saxton's video blog. Huge, huge resources for getting started with Power BI. And with that, I am done. So do we have any other questions?
We do. And let's see. So can you define relationships instead of accepting the relationships assumed by Power BI? And can you only create relationships in Power BI desktop and not the Power BI service?
So can you create your own relationships within Power BI desktop? Absolutely. So if I didn't like this one, I could just come over here and I could delete it, and it would say, are you sure? Of course, you know, that's what all the Microsoft products are. Are you sure you really want to do that? And I could say yes, and then it's as easy as dragging, you know, one field to another to make a new relationship. And the service, you cannot create those relationships like that within the service. So that's why I said if you're going to bring a whole bunch of disconnected data sources together, your best bet is to start with the Power BI desktop application, put it all here, create those relationships, and then import or publish that to your Power BI service, and it's going to go a lot quicker.
Awesome.
Okay.
And that's all the questions.
Awesome. Well, yay. Thank you everybody so much for attending. I really appreciate it. And I hope you guys learned something.
Oh, I'm confident everybody learned something. If they didn't learn something, they weren't trying.
Okay.
So I'll just remind everybody that I will have the recording for this processed and uploaded later this afternoon. And you should get a follow-up email in a day or two from the user group that kind of thanks you for attending and gives you the link if I do it right. So thank you very, very much to those who had questions. And one of the attendees should look for an email letting them know that they've won the gift card from Century One, $50 Amazon gift card. So thank you all very, very much, and have a fantastic day. Thanks again, Angela.